Hello everyone, my name is Ben at TV Parts Today, and I would like to be your DIY TV repair guide. When we are ordering parts for a board swap, it is crucially important that we get the correct part number so that we are ordering the appropriate parts for our repair. In today's video, we are going to be going over the basics of how to identify part numbers for the 4 major brands of televisions that we deal with here at TV Parts Today. It is important to remember that we need the part number and not the board number, so we are going to be giving you a few examples of each so that we know what we are looking for. This is meant to be a brief overview of the process. There could be an outlier situation for your television there at home, so please feel free to reach out to TV Parts Today if you have any questions, and we'll be more than happy to help you identify the part in your television to make sure that we are getting the correct part for your repair. We also offer free troubleshooting advice, so you can give us a call at 930-212-1975, or you can send us an email to info@tvpartstoday.com with any questions. First, we will be covering how to identify Samsung part numbers in the back of your television. For the 4 major brands that we are going to be covering today, I would say that Samsung is probably the easiest to identify. They do have the part number just displayed on a small white sticker that's just stuck to the front of the part usually. For Samsung main boards, we often see a part number that starts with BN94. We can also see part numbers that start with BN96. Samsung power supplies almost always start with a BN44. When it comes to Samsung T-Con boards, we do see a few variations, a few different styles of part numbers, but usually we see a number that starts with a BN95 or a BN96. We should be careful when trying to identify the part number for our Samsung main boards. Not only will a Samsung main board have the part number displayed on the white sticker, but it will also have the board number displayed on the white sticker. This board number starts with a BN97, and while it can be helpful in some situations, we should not be ordering any main boards based purely off of board number. This does complicate the situation, but once again, feel free to reach out to TV Parts Today, and we will be more than happy to help you however we can. Next, we'll be going over how to identify part numbers in your Vizio TV. When it comes to Vizio main boards, we do see a few different styles, but the most common begin with 756TX. Vizio also uses a partial part number that's embedded into a serial number that ties back to a full part number. So here's an example of the partial part number embedded into the serial number. And this is an example of the full part number after we have put everything together. So you can see that there is the basic framework of a part number that's actually on the board, but we will have to apply that 756TX or so onto it to create the full part number for the Vizio main board. The most common format for a Vizio power supply is going to be a part number that begins with an ADTV. And here we have an example of one of the part numbers printed onto a Vizio power supply. When it comes to Vizio T-Con boards, we do see a very wide range of different part numbers and different styles. We see everything from a 6871L to a number that begins with a 55 and is separated by decimal points. We also see part numbers that begin with LJ94. I know this is very confusing, but once again, feel free to lean on TV Parts Today as often as you need to ask any questions about how to identify the parts that are in your television. Moving on to LG TVs. When it comes to identifying the part number for your LG main board, we will be looking for a small orange or white sticker that's stuck to the front of the main board. This part number usually begins with EBT followed by a string of numbers. But we have more recently seen main board part numbers beginning with EBU followed by a string of numbers. For the power supply in our LG unit, we will be looking for a small sticker with the part number printed on it. Sometimes they are printed directly onto the board. This part number is going to begin with an EAY and then a string of numbers that follows it. We once again are going to need to be careful that we are not using the EAX number. This is a board number for the power supply. We do not want to be using the board number to identify the power supply in our LG unit. To identify the part number for our LG T-Con board, we are going to be looking for a partial part number, usually embedded into a serial number. There are a few different styles, but we do see the T-Cons beginning in 6871L most commonly. This 6871L will not be printed onto your board, so we will have to add it to that partial part number before we are searching for the actual part number for our LG T-Con. Last on the list today is Sony TVs. And when it comes to Sony mainboards, we are going to have to do a little bit of work. The part number for a Sony mainboard is not actually listed on the part anywhere. There will be a small sticker with a reference number that is printed onto it. We can take that reference number and we can punch it into a database to discover what the actual part number is. I would recommend heading to TV Parts Today's website, taking that reference number, punching it into our system, and it should generate you a listing with the part number for your Sony mainboard. This is very confusing and can cause a lot of problems. Feel free to give us a call or send us an email with any questions that you might have about your Sony mainboard part number. Thankfully, when it comes to Sony power supplies, identifying the part number is much simpler. We'll just need to locate the small white sticker that's printed onto your Sony power supply and then take the number off of that, and that should be the part number for your Sony power supply. This will usually be a 9-digit number, sometimes starting with a 1474, and can sometimes be separated with dashes. This is a picture of an example of a part number for a Sony power supply. And once again, if you have any questions, you can give us a call and we'll be more than happy to help. When it comes to Sony T-Con boards, we do see a lot of other brands' part numbers pop up. We see a lot of part numbers with the 6871L, as well as part numbers with LJ94. While these can usually be used as identifiers, Sony will apply a Sony part number to a lot of these T-Con boards, and this is not the simplest of situations, but once again, feel free to reach out to us with any questions that you might have about your Sony T-Con part number. In conclusion, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different main boards, power supplies, and T-Con boards that spread out across all brands of television. We do see a lot of crossover, especially when it comes to T-Con boards. It could be from a Vizio unit, it could be from a Samsung unit. There is a lot of overlap when it comes to a lot of these boards, and there could be a lot of different formats that you are seeing on your specific main board or your specific power supply for your specific repair. Once again, please feel free to reach out to TV Parts Today with any questions that you might have about identifying the parts in your TV. It is very crucial to have the exact part number that you need to order for your specific repair. Once again, that number is 930-212-1975. That email address is info@tvpartstoday.com. That's info@tvpartstoday.com. Don't forget, like the video, subscribe, leave us a comment down below, and we will see you next time.